Welcome to this week's edition of Outdoors Online, a weekly webcast produced by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. I'm your host, Tom Jensen. We are in Devil's Lake this week. We continue our series of fishing reports. My guest is Randy Hiltner. Randy is the Northeast District Fisheries Supervisor. Randy, water levels, kind of strange, on Devil's Lake are rising again this spring. Is that going to have any effect? Is it going to cause any issues with your fishery?
Yeah, it is coming up. We might come up 2 feet total roughly, and that could lead to a pretty good pike spawn, which we really don't need. And also, well, it may help us get a good perch spawn with the flooded vegetation. Access-wise, it can only help as far as a couple boat ramps go.
You were getting a little low on some of the ramps then?
Yeah, up at Pelican Lake, that one was unusable, so this may help.
Randy, the bread and butter lake in your district is, of course, Devil's Lake. It's known for winter fishing. You had a good winter, especially for perch this year. Is that going to carry over into the spring and summer months?
Well, we're looking for a good year as far as walleye go. We had above average catch rates in our gill nets last summer, so it should be a good walleye fishery, and the pike numbers are just about off the chart. So it's going to be real busy here in terms of open water fishing in May and June.
You're starting to see some trophy pike showing up also, huh?
We do have some big pike, but we have a whole lot of 26-inch type pike.
The main forage on Devil's Lake for a long time, Randy, was freshwater shrimp or scuds. Is that still the case, and how are they doing?
They're an important part of the food chain for sure, and their numbers seem to be plentiful. But of course, the bigger fish will move to eat smaller fish, and they use the scuds more in the winter than in the open water. But yeah, no, that's good.
How are your fish populations doing on Devil's Lake?
Like I mentioned, the northerns are almost an all-time high according to our netting records, and walleyes are above our long-term average catch rates. Perch, there's a nice 2013 hatch out there that should be 10 inches long or so next winter, so that's good news. And our white bass, we've got a young class of fish coming up that should be around 10, 11 inches this summer. So yeah, it should be good.
Well, like you just said, you do have a very wide variety of species in your district. Let's talk about each one at a time. Start with walleye.
Yeah, as far as the big waters, of course, is the number one walleye destination, but like Devil's Lake all the way down to Stump Lake, it's great for walleye. But you can also wander off into some smaller natural lakes that I have in the district. Lake Coe would be one. Also, Herdsfield Tuffy's a good walleye lake. Lake Addy, Goose Lake near Harvey. So we've got some smaller lakes that you can catch some nice walleyes on too.
Sure. You mentioned northerns on Devil's Lake, but other lakes in your district are also doing well, I would assume.
Yeah, most all the reservoirs have some pike in them, but there's some really good natural lakes, like up in the Turtle Mountains, we had Carpenter Lake, School Section Lake. There's just pike almost everywhere. Sand Lake's a little natural lake by Rugby. It's got lots of pike in it. Red Willow Lake.
Sure. Perch?
Yeah, perch, again, in a lot of these reservoirs, they're not very big size-wise. The big system, Stump Lake, Devil's Lake's probably the best place to get your quantities of bigger fish, but you can catch perch almost anywhere.
Right. You mentioned that you do have a number of smaller lakes in your district that may get overlooked. There is so much pressure on Devil's Lakes and things. Let's go over some of these smaller lakes, what people can look for, what species they can target, and things like that.
Well, again, Red Willow Lake has a lot of bluegill in it. They're not the real big bluegill, but it's pretty good fishing for bluegill.
Good place to take a kid.
Yeah, lots of action. And Wood Lake would be the same for bluegill. A little bigger bluegill are up in Lake Upsilon in the Turtle Mountains. There's just multi-species fisheries throughout the district, and we did recover our water levels a little bit with the runoff, so that's good too.
You have open water for the first time in a number of years when we actually shoot our series of fishing previews. I'm going to ask you the same thing I've asked the rest of the supervisors, Randy. Take a day off, go fishing any lake in your district and any species. Where would you go and what would you do?
Well, I don't drive very far. I'm kind of lazy that way. I would probably just go on northwest part of Devil's Lake off a road and, you know, just cast off the shore and catch mostly pike.
All right, that sounds like fun.
And I'll wait till it's 60 and sunny.
All right, thanks, Randy. We switch gears now and head to the Northwest District. Aaron Slominski watches over the Northwest District. We're going to talk about some of the stuff in there. Let's start with your district lakes, Aaron. You've got some real gems in the smaller lakes in your district.
Yep, we have a lot of smaller reservoirs up in the Northwest. Most of our lakes are small impoundments.
You've got the luxury of having a very wide variety of fish species, and we're going to talk about each one individually. Aaron, let's start with some of your better walleye lakes.
Some of our consistently better walleye lakes are McGregor Dam, Blacktail Dam, and Northgate Dam. McGregor Dam, Blacktail Dam offer a chance to get, walleye 20 inches or bigger. And Northgate Dam's got a lot of smaller walleyes in it, a lot of eater-sized walleyes right now, but some up-and-comers for the future, I guess.
Sure, let's move on to northern pike.
Two of our better pike fisheries up in the Northwest are Powers Lake and Cottonwood Lake. Both offered pretty good pike fish in this winter, some of the angler reports. And
pretty much all of your lakes have northern in them, but some are better than others.
Yep, there's Powers Lake and Cottonwood Lake have some of the bigger pike you can catch. Some pike over 30 inches up in both those lakes. So.
Okay, panfish?
We do have some really good panfish lakes. Trenton Lake, just right outside Williston, right down by Trenton, has been a really good crappie fishery for a number of years. And some of our better bluegill fisheries are Northgate Dam, Leland Dam, Dakota Ray Dam's got some big bluegills in it, and Blacktail Dam also has some bigger bluegills in it. Not super abundant, but they are pretty big if you can find them.
Northwest part of the state, naturally you have some lakes that are fairly remote, and you have trout in them.
Yeah, we do have a lot of lakes that get stocked with trout annually. Two of the lakes that carry over trout from each year from winter and summer that survive the winter and the heat of the summer are McGregor Dam and Northgate Dam. McGregor Dam has some chance of getting a rainbow that's 2, 3, 4 pounds bigger.
I've been asking most of the guys about sleeper lakes in their district, lakes that people might not know about that are pretty good fishing opportunities. Can you name a few?
Yeah, Leland Dam down in McKenzie County is kind of tucked away in the national grasslands there. It's a little off the beaten path, but it's been a really good bluegill fishery for a couple of years and offers a chance of getting a pretty nice bluegill.
Paddlefish opportunities are coming up, and of course they are in your district. When is the paddlefish opener this year, Aaron?
Every year paddlefish season opener is on May 1st. It's just our traditional annual opener. Season runs through the month of May or until 1,000 fish have been harvested. Once the season approaches 1,000 fish, we give a 24-hour notice of in-season closure, and then we close the season to harvest and offer snag and release days after the season for 4 days after the season.
All right, paddlefish snagging is very dependent on water levels, and of course there's a lot of snowpack this year. We had a lot of snow around the area and things. How is that going to affect fishing this year?
Yeah, there's a lot more flow coming down the Yellowstone this year than there was last year. Last year, basically, the ice went out, it just melted. The river never even came up, and the flows are pretty low. The walleye fishing was really good at the confluence last spring. This year, we had a considerable amount of local runoff coming. There still is some runoff from Montana coming down. The Yellowstone's a lot higher than it was last year. And the mountain snowpack is sitting pretty good right now, so there will be a lot of runoff coming later in the year, especially too. But yeah, the success of the paddlefish snagger is usually dependent on water levels. And last year, with the low water levels and the really nice weather, it was a short season. But this year, there's definitely going to be a lot more water coming down the river.
A lot of the people that view these webcasts, Aaron, view them to find out what you fisheries professionals do in your time off. What I'm going to ask you is to take an afternoon off, go fishing anywhere in your district, fish for any species. Where would you go and what would you do?
I'd probably head up to Northgate Dam. It's probably one of our farthest fisheries away from our Williston office, but it's one of our better multi-species fisheries. Bluegills, rainbow trout, nice walleye, so I'll probably take a day off and head up there.
All right, Aaron, thanks.
Thank you.
If you need directions to one of the lakes the guys mentioned, or in fact any fishing lake in North Dakota, the new March-April edition of North Dakota Outdoors magazine is an invaluable tool. The special fishing issue has lake maps, driving directions, boat access information, and even what species of fish are contained in each lake. Also, a fishing outlook from game and fish biologists. If you have a subscription to the magazine, it should be in your mailbox very soon, or the issue is viewable online at the Game and Fish website at gf.nd.gov. For Randy and Aaron and the rest of the staff here at North Dakota Game and Fish, thanks for joining us for Outdoors Online. We'll see you again next week.